Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Footprints. I am your host, Anthony Davis. I am an educator at BHS, that's Beverly High School, for those folks who don't know. And today's guest is somebody who lived about four different lives, ladies and gentlemen, um, and someone that you're going to really kind of want to listen to. Somehow, these all seem to turn into stories worth telling, which we love. Um, Mark Steven Porro, or as you say,
Yes,
Porro. Is that it?
Porro. I
Porro, I
say
got you.
Zorro with a P.
Zorro with a P. I like that. Porro. Okay. So Mark Steven Porro, ladies and gentlemen, is a New Jersey native, exit 163. I love that. Which apparently tells, people from Jersey everything they need to know about whoever they're from Jersey, right? Um,
Right.
well, he earned a degree in industrial design from the Ohio State University before heading into agency work, ladies and gentlemen. But eventually, the pull of acting and storytelling dragged him out of Hollywood, which we're going to talk about. While in Los Angeles, Mark appeared in television and film, which is really kind of awesome, and some stage productions as well, while also launching multiple companies, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, this is crazy. Five nonprofits, accidentally, it says, which honestly deserves its own Netflix series. I got to be honest. Um, so now living in the south of France, because apparently suffering in wine country is a burden, of course. Somehow he has to carry that. Mark has added another title to the list, award-winning and best-selling author. Okay, his memoir, A Cup of Tea on the Commode, which I really love, by the way, is funny and emotional and brutally honest to be, and deeply human. And it tells, ladies and gentlemen, the story of caring for his mother during the final years of her life while trying to fill those moments with dignity, laughter, and a lot of love, which we also love. His memoir is tremendous, and this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, is about family, aging, creativity, purpose, regret, humor, all those certain things that we have in life that happen to us, and it kind of really life kind of completely rewrites our own script or our plans. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a big buildup. Welcome to the show, Mark Steven Porro. Thank you
Well,
for
it,
joining me
it's
today, Mark, on
uh,
Footprints.
it it is my pleasure coming all the way over here from the south of France, which is isn't technology great? I mean,
Technology is
it's
wonderful,
just
isn't it? It's a
yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
thing. So I'll tell you, I was thinking about this whole thing. First of all, um, your mom, her name was Genevieve. Is that correct?
Yes. Hmm.
Um, what a what a dynamic thing you did uh, to give up your life, your career, to help her in her waning years of life. I mean, to be able to do that selflessly is amazing. First of all, I want to say that um, my brother uh, do that for our parents as well. So, a couple things I want to know. First of all, tell me something about yourself that nobody knows, something you haven't shared in the book, something that no one knows about Mark Steven Porro.
Oh my gosh. I'll tell you something dark, I suppose. Um, I'm writing, the next book is focusing more on my dad. And I recently cleared out my storage unit, actually in the States. I hadn't been back in over 9 years. And
Wow.
so I went back for my nephew's wedding in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I also had a storage unit that I had stuff that's been sitting there for 10 years that I obviously didn't need. But in that, I kept every letter my father wrote me. My father's method of communication, favorite method, was typewritten letters.
Wow.
And I kept every one of them. And one that I mentioned actually in a cup of tea, that I lost because I said I must have put it in a really good hiding place because it was a very special letter. I found it. It was in that unit. Um, but among the other things, it's going to greatly inform the book that I'm about three-quarters of the way through.
Hmm.
It'll add some nice spice and hopefully some humor. But in one of his letters, before I had a serious girlfriend in college, he said, "You could be a really selfish kid." And I'm glad that this relationship is diminishing that aspect of you because I guess it affected our relationship. And
Mm.
even in a cup of tea, I mentioned that I certainly could be selfish. I was the fifth out of six kids and the youngest of three brothers. And I had two older sisters, two older brothers, and a younger sister. So to claim some time for yourself and to claim anything, you had to grow up to, I think, be a bit selfish. And so
Wow.
I think part of that is still with me. I think I admit it with my mom as well. There were times where I had difficulty. I didn't have any difficulty when I took over the caregiving, but
Hmm.
I think in life sometimes you think, oh, wait a minute, I think I deserve something. One of the things I mentioned in the book, when a big slab of meat came passed around our table, so we had a family of eight, six kids, and my parents. It was like whoever the steak came, you cut your own piece and passed it on. Well, if the best piece, which was closest to the bone, was still available, I cut that baby off and said, "That's mine." And my brother, I found out like 40 years later, he really objected to that. I said, "Well, you had first dibs,
I
come
love
on."
it.
Anyway, so
I love it.
to have my father bring that up was very interesting.
Wow.
It was somewhat, yeah, it stung a little bit,
That's
but it
amazing,
was
though.
absolutely true, though.
So you found a letter that your dad had written, and that whole thing sort of just started you on those were the sort of the footprints that your dad left on you in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah,
how
yeah.
you guys interacted and became. So tell me, growing up in New Jersey, what kind of kid were you, Mark, basically?
I think I was a very independent kid. My both of my parents worked full time.
Hmm.
My mother actually worked the night shift, and my dad was a chemist by day.
Hmm.
And so the kids sometimes during the day we were left alone. So all
Oh.
six of us ended up, I think, being like our parents. We're very independent
Hmm.
and very stubborn,
Hmm.
and all at one point owned our own businesses, which was very interesting. So we didn't know if we did that because we were so ambitious or people were afraid to hire us. So, but either way, all six of us owned our own businesses.
Wow,
Some for quite a while. My brother and my sister still own theirs. The others are retired. So
that's
that was an
amazing. That's
interesting aspect.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Mark, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I have seven children. Four boys and three girls. My oldest daughter, Caitlin, is 40. My youngest son, Ashton, is going to be 21 next month. And what's interesting about him is I always knew he was going to be the guy that ran everything because when he was little, he had a lemonade business and he had kids working for him. He'd go out and buy the lemonade and he'd like be the guy in charge of everything. And so I always knew he was going to be that one. And he was the youngest of the bunch, so,
Yeah.
similar to you. So
Yeah.
he had a lot of ambition. So tell me, where did your creativity first show up in your life, Mark?
I'd have to say, well, I think all of us are creative in some way, and a lot of that I have to attribute to my mom. She was I call her the champion of the arts.
Hmm.
She got us all into. We lived about 20 miles from New York City, so either a half hour or 12 hours, depending on traffic. She would take us into the city where we went to see the ballet. We saw Broadway. We went to
Hmm.
Radio City Music Hall, so and museums and so we were exposed to a lot of culture. And then all of us, at least the five out of the six of us, all started studying the ballet from an early age. My mom was a big fan, and so we got into the arts early on. And also the first five were in parochial school.
Ooh.
And so that education, though I objected it at the time,
Hmm.
was pretty good because we have, and also in that storage unit I found, old reports. I left after third grade, but I had old reports on art, famous paintings and things like that that we were exposed to and learned about, and that we wrote about. And I'm reading these reports when I'm like 8 years old, and they're
Hmm.
pretty darn good.
Wow.
And I said I didn't really appreciate that education until I got back or went to public school
Hmm.
and was I think my fellow classmates, at least in the fourth and fifth, maybe in sixth grade too, were like way behind where I felt I was.
Wow.
So that school, that education was very strict,
Mhm.
but boy, it was very good and very well rounded. I did oil painting in kindergarten.
Oh my goodness.
Not
Wow.
very good. In
I'll
fact,
say
I
that.
found my first painting, but to be exposed to that, to see beautiful art and then create your own, it was wonderful. So
So is that what led
between
you
this,
to like industrial design? I'm kind of curious, like what, why
well,
industrial design? Because that's not really like the future actor in Hollywood starter packet or anything like
no,
that.
that actually was kind of a fluke. My father was very creative. He was a chemist,
Uh-huh.
and he was a bit of an inventor. So he invented a bunch of fun stuff. The best thing was Nutrinuts, this half popped popcorn snack he invented in
I
1963,
love those.
which I
I
later,
remember those.
we called Grandpa Poe's Originals. We made it into, and unfortunately, it didn't get into the market until my dad passed. But I
Hmm.
took that on
Hmm.
to honor my father, and we turned that into a national brand for quite a while called Grandpa Poe's Originals. So
Hmm.
we were the snack of the day on the Rachel Ray show and things like that. So
Wow.
those kind of creative genes came out of my dad.
Wow, that's
Um,
amazing. That's
yeah, so
amazing.
that was cool. But I originally, from eighth up until eighth grade, my best friend, and I didn't realize this at the time, but I wanted to be an ophthalmologist, and
Oh,
that was my goal, and that's why I went to Ohio State. I
okay.
wanted to be an eye surgeon, and then people are saying, How did you get into that early?" And I said, "Well, my best friend had heated sidewalks, heated driveway. They had a limo instead of a car.
Oh,
He had an elevator in his house and a great slot car collection up in his attic, and had all the bells and whistles a young rich kid could have." And
nice.
I said, "What does your dad do?" He said, "He's an eye surgeon." I said, "I think I want those
I think I
things, and
want
I think that's the way I'm going to
that.
get it." So I originally went to Ohio State for medical school. But when I got in there, I guess I placed really well in my entrance exams, and they put me in all these advanced courses of physics and science and all this business and calculus. And I just didn't have any, I wasn't enjoying it. I loved math and science, and I
Hmm.
loved art. And so I started flipping through the course curriculum and
Wow.
came across industrial design,
Industrial
which
design, yeah.
marriaged math, science, and art.
How
And I
about
said,
that
this
all
is
together?
perfect.
So I'm a
Yeah. So,
humanities teacher. I teach history and English, U.S.
mhm.
History 1 to freshmen, and then an ELA course, basically for juniors, some sophomores, which is nice. It's interesting. So tell me a little bit about your creativity. Like, what's your biggest, would you say, what kind of pulled you towards storytelling and performing? And how did you kind of develop that later on?
Well, I guess again later in or early on, through performing in the ballet, I retired at about 10 or 11 from the ballet,
Okay.
but I enjoyed performing, and I still enjoy watching the ballet. I think it's just
Hmm.
incredible. It's a sport, really. I mean, these people, every freaking muscle in their body is well
It's
developed
amazing.
and is
Now,
used.
you were saying,
And
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you said your parents exposed you to the ballet, right? Your mom,
yeah, yeah,
creativity, all that stuff, right? So there's the early footprints, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about
yeah.
right there. The early footprints of actually being exposed to the arts, and then you actually taking to it and saying, you know what? I think I might want to do something someday and be creative
Yeah.
myself. How about that? Now
Yeah.
that's where it is. That's where it's all at right there for me. All right. And now,
Hmm.
obviously, I was going to ask a follow-up question is who actually introduced you to that? But we already know it was your
Yeah.
mom who
Mom. Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
really instrumental in that, right? All
Yeah.
right. Um,
And parochial school. I have to say my teachers in parochial school. Mrs. Sinan was my kindergarten teacher, and she was the one who introduced me to painting. So I
mhm.
love drawing. Eventually I painted for a bit, but I still carve to this day and make furniture, and I've had a pretty good background in renovating houses and stuff like that. And
Okay.
it
All right.
all came out of that early, I think, wanted to create, wanted to build, wanted to make something that certainly lasts. And those things I think came very early on in
I
my
love it.
upbringing.
So now I have a question. How did you transition to Hollywood from doing that to all of a sudden, like, you know what? I think I'm going to go act now. How did that
Yeah.
happen? I'm
Well, I
curious
think,
about that.
yeah.
What finally
Uh,
made you make the leap into Hollywood?
well, I like adventure, and
Who doesn't?
I liked performing early on as a kid, and then
Hmm.
after that, I created a funny band we call the Fuzzy Dudsdies, which were just crazy songs, funny songs,
Hmm.
and people. We got in high school, we got high or very drunk, and had our little group that hung out and shared these songs and stuff like that. So I had that kind of in me, and I always liked writing funny stories and coming up with funny characters
Hmm.
and making people laugh.
Right.
Humor was a big part of our family as well.
Hmm.
So while I was designing, we had a receptionist who was a model, and she said, "You should try this. You can make some good extra money and stuff like that." And that was in the early '80s where all this supermodel stuff was starting. And I had
Hmm.
actually a guy
Hmm.
in high school became actually a male supermodel in New York, but he was gorgeous. He just had that look.
Right.
I didn't quite have that look, but I had the ambition for a while. And so I started, I guess, doing the modeling, and then I started getting hired for commercials because they said you could act. And then I auditioned for a Robert Redford film in while I was in Ohio because they were looking for locals. He was doing this movie. Um, I can't think of the name of it now, but he was a warden who was concerned about the corruption going on in his prison. So he
Hmm.
became a prisoner to study it from the inside, and that was filmed in Ohio. So I had to audition for a role of a coal miner's brother or
Oh,
something who was a prisoner in the Oh, it was a great movie. Anyway, they
interesting.
hired a lot of locals, and
Hmm.
that was my first audition. And I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, you go into a hotel room, they give you what they call the sides, which is the script, which is
Hmm.
just usually a couple pages. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I loved getting scared to death and being part of that. And so
Wow.
I think that kind of put the bug in my ear. And
That put
so
it in.
I went
Okay.
out, I went out to California for a vacation. And the first week, I went around. I had a connection with an agent from my modeling work in Ohio, and I met with her. And she said, "If you're going to do this, you got to start studying from day one." So she introduced me to an acting teacher because I wanted to be a good actor. I didn't want to be a fluke.
Hmm.
And so I went back. I tied up loose ends, and I also had a design job waiting for me because I had great design. I was very fortunate and worked for two really good design firms.
Oh
So I had
my
a great
goodness.
portfolio, and so I landed a design job.
Hmm.
So I never waited tables except on Dynasty and a few other TV shows.
Wow, I love
Um,
those
so
shows. I
that,
love Dynasty,
yeah,
one of my favorite.
that
Alexis
that
Carrington. I loved her. She
oh
was awesome.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, with
Mhm.
and who was the other girl, the blonde?
Linda Evans.
Linda. Yeah, my brother. She
Yeah.
was at one of the trade shows for our snack food company. My brother had such a crush on her.
Yeah, she
So he
was
goes, "Oh,
great.
I got to
Big
get
Valley
her."
is what I
Yeah.
remember her from.
Oh
Audra.
yeah. Oh
That's,
yeah.
see, I mean, I'm dating myself too.
Yeah, and that was Barbara Stanwyck doing TV. So
Yes,
that was
indeed.
amazing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So now,
Anyway, so I decided to give up a really good, steady design career to
okay.
go out and I did the design for about a year and then gave that up to do the
Strike it out in
acting full
Hollywood.
time.
Okay,
Yeah,
so now tell me a little bit about what's the biggest misconception that people have about actors and the entertainment field in general?
I don't know. I think a lot of it's true. I mean, it's you.
It might be.
The you well, if the people who think they get discovered overnight are usually people who've been working their tail off for 10 years
Mm.
and studying and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Because the thing is, when you see people, sometimes people will get nice breaks and you never see them again. And that's
Right.
because they didn't put the work in. They didn't put the work in before, they didn't put the work in during, and they didn't put the work in after. And I'll give
Hmm.
you a couple of examples. And I may get in trouble with some of these, but Tom Hanks, I worked with Tom Hanks in Castaway. I had a small part in Castaway.
Nice.
But everything you've heard about this guy is true. He's just lovely, a lovely man, certainly a good actor, but just a good guy you want to hang out with.
Hmm.
And but he was on a TV show called Bosom Buddies.
Yes, I remember that.
And the other guy may have been a great actor, but Tom Hanks is the one that emerged from that and became the
Yeah,
superstar.
without a doubt.
Um,
You could tell the
and
talent he
again,
has.
yeah, and so somebody went, "Oh yeah, that guy's gonna, I
Hmm.
think has this potential." I worked on
Sure.
another TV show called Two Guys, a Girl, and the Pizza Place, and this is where I may get in trouble, but I think we're gonna be okay. Anyway, Ryan Reynolds, that was his first gig, at least in the
Right.
States. He was a Canadian actor,
Yeah, I
and the
remember
other
Ryan.
guy. And I'm on that show, and Ryan Reynolds could not have been nicer. He was a funny guy, good actor, and
Hmm.
but in he just was a good guy. He was involved with what's going on the set. He liked all the other actors. He liked
Yeah.
to communicate and hang out. The
Nice.
other guy was a little bit of an ass. And I'm looking at that guy, and at this point, I had a number of years of working, so I kind
Hmm.
of knew what kind of was going on.
Right.
And I looked at this guy, and I didn't say it to him, but I said to myself, I said, "You are freaking lucky. You got this break, and you're an ass,
Right.
and you're being an ass to everybody, and we're probably never going to see you again, and we never have."
Yeah, so
And
that's what
someone
it
like
is.
Ryan Reynolds, I just said, you're going to do great
Yeah.
because he was just, not only did he have the talent and certainly the looks,
Hmm.
but he put the work in.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Now,
so,
was there ever a
so
moment
that,
you thought to yourself, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Mark, but was
yes,
there ever a
okay.
moment you thought to yourself, okay, I've made it. I've been in these movies with these big name stars, and these guys have really forged their careers. And you thought to yourself, okay, this is it. I'm here. I made it. I finally decided to jump in and be an actor, and I'm now one of them. Was
Well,
there that
yeah,
moment?
well, you have certain moments like yes, but those moments happen and then they go away very quickly. So I went out there. I said I wanted to be a serious actor, so I started studying from day one,
Hmm.
and my goal was to get on a show like Hill Street Blues. And in less than 2 years, I got cast on Hill Street Blues. And that was one of the top shows at the time. And if you had that on your resume, that put you in a certain level where people
Wow,
said, okay, he's got to be a good actor if they cast him.
let's get
So
that.
we
Yeah.
have to take a look at this guy. So when you get a gig like that, you kind of say, yeah, I got this now. Because once you get Hill Street Blues, then all these other people are going to say yes. And, and I didn't work again, I think, for 7 months,
Mm.
and that is not unusual. But again, during those 7 months, I continued to study. I continued certainly to market
Hmm.
myself and
Hmm.
to look for parts and audition. And if you don't have, if you're not getting the parts and stuff like that, then you get into, which I did, into writing. So you kind of you do your best to take control of your own, I guess, destiny. So if you're not going to get it as an actor, maybe you get it as a writer, or if you write your own part, that could work out. So you have to put all, let's say, irons in the fire,
Hmm.
and hope one of them's going to catch fire.
Wow, no doubt. Man, that's amazing. Mark, you've lived a lot of lifetimes, my friend. So tell
Yeah.
me, you kind of joked about like accidentally creating five nonprofits. I need the full story, dude. How did that all come about? Talk to me about that.
Well, if I had a lot of ambition and I had a lot of, I felt creative juices going. And in California at that time, moved out in the summer of '84. And if you had any ambition, that was a place where you could just create. And it was like everything was there for you to do stuff. So
Hmm.
any of these nonprofits were, as I joke, were not intended to be nonprofits, but
Right.
you go out, you put your heart and soul in it, you work your tail off, and
Hmm.
sometimes things just don't work out. So the first venture I did was, let's say, besides acting, was I started a greeting card company, and the potential was all there and stuff like that. But if you don't
Wow.
find the right distributors
Uh-huh.
and the right
Uh-huh.
people at the right time, so that thing eventually did not make any money. So that was, the first of the nonprofits. And, and then you go on, you say, okay, I'm not going to, as Nelson Mandela says, I don't lose, I learn. And
Learn.
so
Yeah.
you take what you learned from that experience and you
Yeah.
take it to the next one. And
Wow.
the only one that actually really worked out, I think, was the snack food company. And I think that all that experience I had from these other, let's say, failures, led to that. Because with that company, not only did I do all the cooking and stuff like that, but the design came back into
Hmm.
into play because I designed all the equipment. I built the factory and designed the factory.
Wow.
I did the website, all the marketing, all the packaging, all that kind of stuff. It was almost a one-man operation with my
That
brother handling financing and
that's
stuff like that.
amazing. That's
And it was
absolutely
fun.
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, so what do all those experiences teach you about people and business itself and kind of what did the failures teach you more than the successes?
Well, I'd say with what was good with acting is you learn how to read people
Mm,
usually pretty quickly, and you got to read the room. And if you're, let's say, auditioning and you're losing the room, and it could just be one person, sometimes it's a whole group of people.
hmm.
You've got to do something to get their attention. And there were certain moments that you know when you have them, and you have other times where you completely lost them. I auditioned for a very big producer for a comedy show.
Hmm.
And my first minute, I had him. It was just, I knew I had him. I had him laughing and I had him like in the palm of my hand. And then I kept going to take it a little further. And by the end of it, the major person in Hollywood, her jaw was almost on the ground. And I knew I absolutely blew it after that because I
Oh,
went too far.
you went too
I
far.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, went too far.
Yeah.
That was not an accurate reading of the room because I said, "Oh, I got them now, and I'm going to just go and go crazy," and went crazy and lost the part.
Now, when you were doing all of this stuff, Mark, did you like question yourself? Do you feel like, were there moments where you like, I don't know whether this dream is going to be worth it. I don't know if I can really make it. I mean, you've been in some productions, great, but was it sustainable to you? Did you feel like it was something you can continue to do?
I have to be honest, no, because there was a point where there's a lot of shenanigans in Hollywood, and there were, and I wanted to make it on, let's say, my talent and my ambition, and
Hmm.
not, by fooling around with the right people or the wrong people or the wrong gender or something,
Yeah.
and all that stuff comes into play. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And I certainly had opportunities to do that. But I wasn't, I'd say kind of maybe cliche. I wasn't going to sell my soul for a part. And
Wow.
I got a little bit disillusioned, I think, with Hollywood when those moments came up.
Hmm.
And I said, if this is what I got to do to get there, I'm not willing to do that because I got to
Yeah.
live with myself. And so I started, I think, retreating a bit. And that's when I put more, let's say, energy into the snack food company because that was created to honor my dad, and that had certainly more meaning than any of this other stuff. So that kind of took over, and so I didn't feel like I lost or really gave up. I just said, okay, I'm making a change here,
Yeah.
and I still have a nice pension coming from acting. Being a union actor and you're working for a lot of years, and I didn't do great. I had some really nice shots
Hmm.
and some steady work for a number of years. And so the pension actually is a nice icing on the cake that I didn't
Yeah,
realize I had.
absolutely. Well, you
You know,
survived
say,
Hollywood. How about that? That's a
yeah,
nice thing to be able to say, right?
yeah,
That's pretty
yeah,
cool. So then the focus started to shift, Mark, for you, right? So at some
yeah.
point, it shifts from really kind of chasing your dream to showing up for your family, right? And you're writing your memoir and you're caring for your mom. So tell us about your mother a little bit. What type of person was she, Mark?
Well, she was an only child, so she was, I would say, the most independent of all of us.
Hmm.
My dad grew up with six, in a family of six kids, just like I did, and so he always had brothers and sisters and a lot of cousins and stuff. My mother had, I think, her two cousins, and that was about it.
Mm,
Her father died very young. He was around 54. And then her mother died 4 years later. So when she was an orphan, basically.
okay.
And and also I think she went through some tragedy. I don't want to ruin, it's in the book, a couple of tragedies early in life. And I think
Hmm.
she built some emotional walls. So she was very hard sometimes to get into really know what her feelings were. And neither of my parents ever talked about pain or their feelings or anything like that. And I think I was a pretty curious kid. And also, I think my acting may have training came in here, and I got them both to open up about things I never wanted to open up about.
Okay.
And I didn't do it. I was just curious. I wanted to know about family history. I wanted to know about them as people. And as one of the benefits, I left home shortly after I turned 18 and went to school and never really moved back home.
Yeah, that was
And
me. Same deal.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So
moved
when my
out, went to
parents,
college, and just kept on going. Seven
yeah,
kids later, and
well, there
married
you
for
go.
35 years, so a lovely woman, and here we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
does to you. You just move with it, kind of take it
Yeah.
along with you. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me about caregiving though. So that was something that kind of changes people emotionally. How did it change you? And then when did you realize this is what I was going to be doing for my mom?
Wow. Well, like you say, I think with your footprints, a lot of these things were, let's say, ingrained in me growing up.
Mhm.
We cared for each other a lot. We cared for others. My father's favorite poem was "Others," and it was put me in the service of caring for others. And so
Mhm.
we knew how to treat other people with with respect and just do the right thing. And so when this thing came up with my mom, again, I had a good relationship with her, and at the time, my brother was I had two brothers that lived very close to mom, and one took care of all the finances and medicine that he would stop in almost every day. She was still in the house that we all grew up in. But we had a family in there that we hired to keep mom company and do the grocery shopping and cooking. And but the main thing was keep her company because she could
Mhm.
still function at that point. And they did not get along, and they were there for years.
Mhm.
And and my mom didn't want to go to assisted living, and these people did not want to give up the, I think, the cushy job they had. So they all kind of kept it quiet. And I sensed the tension. I think my siblings did, the people who came in to visit, but we never thought it was that bad.
Mhm.
But shortly after my mom's 89th birthday, I think she kind of looked around and said, if this is going to be my life, I'm done. So she kind of willed herself to go and leave this earth
Mhm.
and just shut down. And then, so my brother called me. So the call was when everything kind of shifted and
Mhm.
said, Mom shut down. She's in bed, non responsive. The doctor cut off all meds and food and said, call hospice. She's going to transition. That's it. And so we all came back home
Mhm.
and we were ready to say goodbye. We had a priest come in and deliver the last rites. And and that was it. She responded a little bit to touch, but she didn't rarely opened her eyes and never spoke a word. And
Wow.
so
Wow.
my sister and I, my younger sister and I, wanted to care for our mother as much as we could. So we
Mhm.
asked hospice to teach us how to take care of her, how to change the diapers, how to sponge bathe, how to change the bedding with a helpless patient in bed. And at that point, my mother had bed sores, so how to treat the bed sores. And so we took care of mom. They were very generous in
Mhm.
teaching us. And so we filled in quite a bit. And I think my mom sensed that love was back in the house and her kids wanted her to stick around.
Mhm.
And after a few weeks, she snapped out of it, which was
Wow.
great. And so at that point, once she snapped out of it, I felt that I had to play a bigger role in caring for her and
Mhm.
take some of
Mhm.
the burden off my brother.
Right.
And at that point, I was a carefree bachelor living in LA and no kids, never married. And so I was able to do it. And I was certainly willing to do it because I thought my mom deserved better. So that put the wheels in motion. And by the
Mhm.
end of the year, I moved in full time to the house that I grew up in.
Wow. Amazing. Well, I'll tell you, the title alone tells people right off the bat, this is not going to be a traditional memoir, right? So
No.
where did that title come from? Why did you decide to write A Cup of Tea on the Commode?
Well, I'll tell you why I wrote the book first and then where the title came from. So while I was doing this, I think I took a bit of a different approach. It's again, it's not usual for the son to take over the caregiving duties.
Hmm.
And I jumped in and I was certainly willing. And I jumped in. My motto is find the joy. So I jumped in with an open heart and open mind, said,
Hmm.
listen,
Hmm.
mom deserves better. I'm going to make her laugh.
Right.
I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna
Hmm.
treat her with respect, return some dignity, and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And so that's how it began. And it was a really good, I think, learning experience, for me. But I had
Oh.
a friend who was going through something similar. And I was a few months into this at this point. And so I shared what I learned from hospice and
Hmm.
some of the things that I was doing. And she got some benefit out of it. And so I said, I think I got something here because normally if I come upon a good story because of my Hollywood experience, I'm thinking, okay, how can I turn this into a movie?
Hmm.
And so that's my first thought. But I thought a book is going to be a lot faster, and also I would have more control over it than a film, and so that's what put those wheels in motion to write a book about it because I thought people could benefit from my experience.
Yeah, I can
And
tell
then
you, man, just by talking to you, that there's probably some moments that were really difficult to relive. Um, and so when you're writing in those moments, how do you incorporate those into the book to give it a bit of realism? I know you dealt with everything,
yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, he did with humor, which is really the best way. The humor is the best medicine for anything, I think. Um, but how did you, when those moments were hardest to relive, how did you deal with what when you were writing those type of moments?
Well, while I was doing it, again, I wasn't sure. I didn't think about the book until well after. I
Hmm.
took a lot of notes
Hmm.
and took photos and videos and stuff. But the main reason was I have I guess a habit or history of recording family history because I don't want these things lost.
Hmm.
And I was privy to some really interesting moments, lovely moments,
Hmm.
interesting visions that my mom had because she suffered a little bit from dementia at the time.
Hmm.
And I didn't want my siblings to miss out on this stuff. So I started recording these conversations and writing them down and writing the moments down. And as I decided to do the book, I couldn't do the book for quite a while. But when I came up with an idea, I would just jot down the notes. So I had lots
Hmm.
of notes. And I didn't actually write the book until I moved to France because I
Oh,
needed emotional distance as well as physical
how
distance, I
about
guess.
that?
And so in this room is where I wrote the book. And I never wrote a book before. I wrote, screenplays and jokes and things like that. But
Hmm.
I started studying that genre, and I had a memoir teacher that I did over the internet, and it was
Hmm.
great. And she ended up being my first editor. And so I got great notes, and I wanted to be a published author, so I wanted to get it in the best shape I could before I started putting it out to publishers. And I
Wow.
ended up having actually two publishers that wanted to
Hmm.
publish it, which was great.
That's
And
amazing.
so there we go. And there's the book. And so I had another title in mind, and then while I'm writing it, my mom's favorite beverage was a cup of hot tea, skim milk, and no sugar.
Hmm.
And sometimes we had, at this point, mom was no longer really mobile, and to get her in and out of the bathroom was a bit
Hmm.
dicey. So we set a commode bedside. And sometimes Mother Nature took a little longer than was comfortable for either one of us. And so, kind of as a joke one morning, I said, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea while we're waiting?" And she said, "Sure." And it was a hit. And so that became part of our morning ritual. So, a cup of
Wow.
tea on the commode was a practical thing. And I thought also a catchy title. And so
What
that's
a
how that came
footprint memory that is. That's tremendous to have, to bring with you, to keep with you that particular memory of you and your mom. I mean,
in. Yeah.
that's really powerful stuff right there. I got to be honest. I'm going to ask you a question, and I was thinking about this too before I asked it. Um, what's one memory with your mother that still hits you like right in the chest? Boom, like a ton of bricks.
Well, and there's a chapter about this also. So we had a pretty difficult. There's a number of difficult days, but
Hmm.
I think we both handled them pretty well. There were a couple of moments that I'm not proud of that are in the book. I won't bring one of them up, but the other one I'll bring up. So after this difficult day, I'm again I'm trying to be as as caring and loving as possible.
Hmm.
And my mom looks at me. Again, it was a tough day, and she says, "Why are you doing this?" And I looked at her and I said, "Because it's an honor for a son to take care of his mother." And she says, "It is?" And she was shocked. And it killed me to think that this woman who brought me up
Hmm.
to do, I think, this very type of thing
Hmm.
was mystified by me actually doing it.
Yeah.
And so I had to justify, I had to bring up all these instances where she never let me down. She was
Right.
always there for me and all that
Right.
stuff. And so, but after that, I put her to bed, and then I had to go through, I guess, my moment of reflection.
Hmm.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I gave up all this. I don't really think of it as giving up my life.
Right.
It was, I guess, a transformation or something. It was just a different aspect of life,
Right.
and a very rewarding one in the
Hmm.
end.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I wouldn't have traded it for the world. And but I did have why am I doing this? And then I had to do some searching.
Yeah.
And then again, any of those tough moments are tough times. It's like your kid. There's times you want to kill them. I
That's
re-
for sure.
I recommend do not do that. And
Hmm.
but and then your loved one gives you a little smile, or she tries to pinch your cheek, or or she just squeezes your hand, and
Yeah.
you go, yeah, that's why I'm
Yeah.
doing this.
That's
That's all I
awesome.
needed.
Oh
Some of our
man.
best moments were just sitting at the kitchen table holding hands
Yeah.
in silence because
Yeah.
there was so much
That's
love going through those hands. It was
Yeah,
beautiful.
of course. I mean, I mean, her bringing you up, obviously, the way you have such tremendous core values, is what I like to call them.
Yeah,
I also have them as well, and I pass those on to my seven children, and hopefully they'll pay it forward to those folks that they come in contact with, leave footprints on those folks as they embark on their journey in the world, and
right.
that's my hope for that. And ladies and gentlemen, if you like our content, please subscribe to BevCam right here. And don't forget, we're also on YouTube at Footprints Podcast and Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. Um, let's shift gears a little bit now, Mark. Talk about reinvention a little bit, France in your life now. Um, so somehow this guy from New Jersey ends up living in the south of France. Tell me about that. How did France happen? Because your mom was there and you decided to move there, or was it something you just decided to go ahead and do? How did that come about?
I think again another fluke, but again I like adventure. So an ex-girlfriend of mine always wanted to retire in the south of France, so that put the idea in my head.
Hmm.
And I'm Italian, also I have French on my mother's side as well.
Hmm.
But I've been to the little village where my grandfather came from in Italy, and I thought, oh, if I'm going to retire, it's going to either be Italy or a Caribbean island or something. But we came to France and we spent a week in Provence and then a week in Paris,
Hmm.
and had the loveliest time. And the French people were just lovely, and certainly the food and the wine and
Hmm.
just the culture is fantastic. And my mother, as a joke, I would call her Geneviève, which is the French pronunciation. I had never studied French. And then my brother was David. I called him David all the time.
Hmm.
Again, the French pronunciation. And I think my French relatives on my mother's side had something to do with it because none of this should have worked. I came in 2015 after my mom passed. I came to this little village where I live now.
Hmm.
I was here 5 days and I fell in love with the village and said, this is going to be my home. And
Wow.
I put an offer in for this house that we see. It's
Hmm.
almost 500 years old. And it was accepted. And that was it.
Wow.
It was originally going to be a vacation home. But circumstances just kind of worked out where
Hmm.
I moved here officially in 2017 and I haven't looked back.
Wow. That's
They
amazing.
have, they have the way of,
What's been the
they
biggest
have the life.
adjustment for you, Mark? I mean, going to the south of France, suddenly, boom, you got to learn a new language, right? Don't you? I mean, this must be a huge
Yeah,
adjustment.
yeah, but they're pretty good about it. Again, I'd have to say I go in again with find the joy. I said I'm going to make the best of this situation. I did not speak French when I first came here. My French is still terrible. but they're very good. And I think if you, again, you have an open heart and you realize that you
Hmm.
are an immigrant, I
Hmm.
am a guest in this country, and
Oh
I
yeah.
treat them like that.
Wow.
And I've never had an issue with any of the. They love paperwork. There's a lot of regulations that change all the time,
Hmm.
and I just say I go with whatever's going on because I love being here. So they are crazy in cars. I'll have to say that, especially
Yeah.
in the south of France, is like the I guess southern United States. They're a little more laid back and stuff like that. But you
Hmm.
put them in a car, they're insane. So
Well,
there's a joke say if you want a Frenchman to do something fast, put him in a car.
yeah, no
And it's
doubt.
so
Well,
true.
well, so does living there kind of make, I don't know, make you reflect differently on America and ambition in America or not?
No, I certainly appreciated my experience as an American, but you've got to chill it when you're here.
Hmm.
You know, Americans are known as being loud and pushy, and
Hmm.
the ugly American does exist. I've heard it. There's a tone, and if I have a chance to grab those people and say, turn it down, man.
I love it.
Turn the volume down. You're in their country. You're an immigrant.
So,
But what's funny, so what I had to get paperwork early on. So you have
uh-huh.
to get what your carte séjour. So you have a visa that lasts a certain period of time. And then if you want to up it, you get what every year a carte séjour. And you got
Hmm.
to go wait in a long line with everybody else in the world that wants to get one. So I'm in line, and I asked the ladies at the thing they call it the prefecture, which is like their government building in a big city. And you go there, and I said, "What time do I have to be here?" They say early, and I said, "Okay, what's early?" And she says, "Well, we open at 8." And I said, "Okay." I got there before 5 a.m. the first time I did, and I'm
Wow.
second in line
Oh
because
my.
there's only 10 appointments they do per day.
Oh my
So you got
goodness.
to show up early. So
You got to
the
get
first
there.
guy, he's from Algeria, then me, then
Mhm.
Nigeria, Papua New Guinea, and boom, boom, boom down the line. And
Wow.
you are, as an American, for me, it was not a problem, but it is humbling because you have to realize I am no different than these guys.
Hmm.
We're all trying to do the same thing. We're
Yeah,
all trying to become part of France, or
absolutely.
to at least the permission. And that's tough for I'd have to say for some Americans to
Uh,
adjust to because we hear certain people and they go, "Oh, I can't get this. I can't." No, you can't because you're not in America.
right.
When in Rome, baby, enjoy it.
That's it.
But
Gotta enjoy it.
yeah, but they know how to chill. When you get a table in the restaurant, it's yours for the night.
Wow.
Nobody's pushing you to turn over.
Yeah. You're
It's
just
just
chilling, doing your thing, and then when you're done, right?
you're done.
How about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
So now, from a creative perspective, are you still being driven today? I know you said you're writing a second book.
Right.
Um, but are there other things that you still want to do? I mean, you've done so much. You're an author, right? You're an actor. You're a caregiver.
I'm an
You've done so
experienced
many things. You had all these
nonprofit builder.
nonprofit organizations you did, right? So, what still drives you today, Mark?
Well, I still like creating, so I still carve. I used to carve as a kid and build furniture and stuff. I'm award-winning furniture maker from high school
Okay.
in the state of New Jersey, and so those those are still I guess in me and my fingers. So actually, I didn't carve for about 50 years, and I started carving again. So I got
Wow.
these big 1 meter tall carvings that I started to do.
Wow.
And they're writing the book, and I've written the screenplay for A Cup of Tea because there is some interest
Hmm.
from some people in Hollywood. So I got back to the screenwriting, and so the book, and I do have to put some more effort into learning the language because that's a struggle for me. But part of it is, I get away with it because charm goes a long way here.
Yeah.
And I've also got some really, I mean, my neighbors are all lovely French people and they all forgive me. And they
I
love
love it.
learning English. So I
Love it.
help them with their English.
I love it. All right, so now we're going to do a little rapid fire action right now. Rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to your mind, Mark, I want you to say what you're feeling.
Okay.
All right, one word that describes your mother.
Stubborn.
Stubborn. I like that one. Yeah, mine too. A movie everyone should watch once.
Big fish.
Yeah, definitely. Best lesson Hollywood ever taught you.
Don't sell your soul.
Yeah, for sure. How about the worst advice people have given you in Hollywood?
Wow. I'm trying, worst.
Worst
Um,
advice that people
yeah.
have given you in Hollywood.
Oh, gosh, I can't.
I
I
stumped
guess
them. I love it.
there's so many. You stumped me. Yeah, Hollywood. Worst advice.
Well, you know what?
Uh,
I'll tell you
yeah,
something.
I have no idea.
That's fine because that means that you're putting out positive energy and you're really attracting that. So there's no negative energy coming emitting from you. So that's a good thing. How about a place in
Okay.
France that everybody should experience?
Well, I would say this little village is Pézenas. It's a little village where they say Molière was born. It's very creative. We have our own Hollywood Walk of Fame. They are, they do. My place was built, they say, around 1540. So there's a lot of 16th and 17th century buildings here, a lot of history. And every few years, because of Molière, they will do what they call a Renaissance festival. And this town is, let's say, 8,400 people. I would have to say half of them get dressed in period costumes for this event, which is a 3-day event. And it's amazing. They
Wow.
all come to play. And they go back in time and they have these pop-up taverns and they do Moliere plays in the street and on stage and from windows and apartments and things like that.
Oh,
It is absolutely
that
wild and
sounds like that'd
they're
be a lot
just
of fun.
very creative and there's all kinds of artisans here for ceramicists and painters and musicians
I
and
love it.
it's a very cool place.
That definitely sounds like a great vibe. Coffee, wine, or tea?
Wow, I have to go with the red wine.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I like a nice red wine. What's one thing people misunderstand about caregiving?
I would say they focus too much on the stress that it's giving them, and I would say put the focus on your loved one because that will relieve a lot of the stress from you.
Mm-hmm.
Put
Mm-hmm.
the onus on them. Say,
Yes,
how can I make their day more special?
I
How
love it.
can I make them smile today?
Yeah,
And
of
it
course.
takes a lot of the weight off your shoulders.
Definitely. What makes you laugh every single time? I have a great memory
Uh,
about my dad. That
Yeah.
makes me laugh every time I think about
Okay.
it.
All right. I'll tell you this one because you just brought that up. Because again, yeah, we're trying to focus on mom, but my dad's book. So 2 days before my dad passes. Now, my mother was like, do it all. Her dignity was out the table, just whatever. It had no problem with me wiping her butt, touching, bathing, anything. My father wanted to hold on to his last piece of dignity, which was no one is going to wipe my fanny but me.
Hmm.
So we get him up on the commode. Now he was suffering from heart disease, so he had about 40 pounds of water weight in him, and so I'm holding him up, and I get him on the commode, and then my mother is waiting with the toilet paper, and then when he's finished, I hold him up, and he's struggling to stand, and he looks over at my mom and says, "Give me 2 sheets." And she says, 2 sheets, just two? He goes, I'm very accurate and I almost dropped him. And we had the three of that was the best laugh we've ever had. And
So,
but he was
oh, I love it.
always if he could make someone laugh, that was his goal.
Oh man. I'll tell you something. Memories of something I cherish with my parents. I remember so much that they taught me, and so much that I passed on to my kids. And I'm very thankful that I have a mate that helps me kind of embellish all those things that my parents really kind of left to me. And it's been wonderful, and I've been very blessed to have the
Well,
life that I have. I wake up every morning, Mark, and I go to a career that I get to do as opposed to having to do it. There's so
yeah.
many people in life that don't. I've been very blessed to be able to do that, and I hope God continues to smile on me that way. So now, a couple final questions I have for you, sir.
Wait,
When
but
people
can I
finish
interrupt
reading,
you for
yeah, go ahead.
what was that memory of your dad that makes you laugh?
Oh, okay. So I'm glad you asked me. So my father, we had a dog when I was a kid, and my dad loved to fart. He would fart a lot, and he would blame other people. So this one particular time, dad's losing his memory. He's kind of feeble. He's not really feeling too well or whatever. We're sitting in the den, and the dog is laying on the floor, right? And I'm in the den, and we're watching TV. He used to love to watch the Golden Girls, right? And so we're watching TV, and my sister walks in, Carol walks in, and she's like, "Oh, what is that smell?" And, and my dad goes, "Oh, I know that dog stinks so bad. We got to give him a bath." And it was my dad. It was him. He would always do that and
Right.
blame the dog. And every time I think about that memory, it just makes me smile and laugh and think, here's a man who loved himself so much and loved us so much, he would give us the gift of laughter through that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that was one of my biggest moments, and I always keep it with me. And
Hmm.
I just laugh and smile every time I think about it because, like, yeah, Dad, that one stinks. That one's for you. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
he was wonderful, and I really appreciated everything he did for me, giving me all of the core values that I instill in my kids, and into my students as well. It's been
Hmm.
fabulous. Um, so, I have a question for you, sir. A couple of questions. When people finish reading a cup of tea on the commode, what do you hope stays with them?
I think, well, again, I would like them to find the joy in taking on that job because it's emotionally, mentally, and certainly physically exhausting. And if you, again, go in with the open heart and the right mindset to find the joy in it. I have one of my siblings, my oldest sister, uh, never understood how I could find the joy in this because she had a limit. She was a very dutiful daughter,
Mhm,
and she would come in and fill in for me when I had to go to California to work on the snack food business. So I
mhm,
would go out there every few months for 1 week, and Laura would come in. She goes, "I have a 7 day limit, and that's it." And I blow my top. So, and she never found the joy in it and
mm.
was amazed that I was able to do it. So I think it's a choice. Um, and that was the choice I made. And, it was a 3.5 year adventure, I call it. And my
Mhm,
mom left this world, I think, in a way that most people would be envious. She died in her bed, in her room, in the house we all grew up in, surrounded by her loved ones. And it was a beautiful way to go. And it was a beautiful way for me to say goodbye because
mhm, mhm.
it wasn't so sad for me. Of
Right.
course, mom's gone, and there's a void there. But she couldn't have gotten out in a better way. And so that certainly helped me with, saying goodbye and the grieving process since. So find the joy.
Yeah, for sure. Now, having lived the life you've lived so far, what would you say to your younger version of yourself that's way back in New Jersey, like having lived this life and doing all the things you've done so far? What would you say to your younger self at this point? What advice would you give them? I would
I have
say.
thought about this before. You know what? I would say do not change a thing.
Hmm.
Because if anything changed along the way, whether it's, the butterfly effect or whatever, I wouldn't be here where I am right now, which is pretty good.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't have been, I don't think, there for my mother the way I was. Also, if any of those things changed,
Hmm.
and if I became a big Hollywood star, that may not have happened. If I stayed in design and made, a fortune and had too many responsibilities, not be able to leave the job to go care for mom, that wouldn't have happened. And I wouldn't have changed that job for anything.
Hmm.
And it was also the best acting role I ever did because
Yeah,
I
for
played the
sure.
caregiver and I was damn good at it. and I
No doubt,
enjoyed it.
no doubt. Now, where can the folks buy your copy of a cup of tea on the commode? Where can they purchase that,
I
Mark?
think on most online retailers, of course, Amazon. Amazon has it in all four versions, which is the paperback, the ebook, large
Mhm.
print paperback, and the
Okay.
audiobook. Barnes and Noble has, I'm not sure if they have all four, but if they just Google a cup of tea in the commode, we're everywhere. I mean, I've got a YouTube channel with a lot of funny videos. The website is a cup of tea on the commode.org.
Hmm.
Um, uh, we're everything from TikTok to Facebook to Instagram and all that stuff. So if they
Awesome.
Google that, and my hometown paper actually actually is a magazine in my hometown. It just in the May issue, they released it for Mother's Day, which was lovely timing, where they did a nice spread on me and my book from a local guy,
Hmm.
and they put me on the cover, which was kind of wild.
Oh,
That was a bit of a
how
surprise because
about
I think
that?
everybody in my town gets that magazine. So it's like,
That's
holy
awesome.
Christmas. Yeah, that was fun. So
Good for
I'm
you.
famous.
So, and finally, what footprint do you hope to leave behind?
Well, it's certainly my mom's story, and
Hmm.
I'll tell you this. Hopefully, a quick story. So, because it's mom continues to teach, and I
Hmm.
think whenever I get to share this story, and certainly the book, a mom is a mom, and they always have something to teach us. And so, when I first did the book, it was released on Mother's Day,
Hmm.
actually 3 years ago. And but I couldn't do the audio book right away because I get very emotional, even with the things that had nothing to do with, we're talking about baseball. I'm crying. I'm going, there's no crying in baseball. No, but so it took me about 6 months before I could get it together, and I had to pull all my acting experience into being
Hmm.
able to get through that book.
Hmm.
And but during that 6 months off, I'm looking at the book and reading it with fresh eyes, which was great because it was like I'm looking at it and realizing different things. And if you read the story or hear my story, it sounds like I went back to rescue my mom. And upon reflection, in those 6 months, it took me to realize this. I think mom actually rescued me
Hmm. Hmm.
because she gave me this opportunity to do something really important in life, which I
Yeah.
don't think I had done, let's say, really in my life up to that point.
Well, I'll
And
tell
I was
you,
smart. I
kudos.
was smart enough to do it. So mom, taught me a big lesson and said, "Here you go, buddy. You got an opportunity to do something good. Let's
Well,
do
you
it."
know what, Mark? I'll tell you something. Because you did do something good, we're having this conversation today. Kudos to you for writing that book and being involved in caregiving. It's amazing that you're able to get outside yourself and be selfless for others, which is really amazing. Some folks can't do it, and you did it for your mom, which was really the story within the story. I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. This episode reminds us that life really follows the blueprint print that we imagine it to be. You can study design and end up acting. You can chase Hollywood and end up writing about caregiving. You can spend years building careers and eventually realizing the moments that really matter most happen quietly, away from the spotlight, in hospitals, in beds, in houses, in kitchens, and conversations with people we truly love. Huge thanks, ladies and gentlemen, to my guest today, Mark Steven Porro. Porro, thank you, like Zorro. Mark Steven Porro, thank you for joining us today on Footprints. And I'll tell you something. Thanks for bringing your humor and your heart. And the conversation that we had was wonderful. Please, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to check out where you can purchase a cup of tea on the commode. And also, if you know someone who's hurting, who's in maybe the situation that Mark was in, where he had to care for his mom, share this episode with them and let them find the joy in helping others, that passion of bringing that to them, to their person, that person that needs it. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I always thank you for listening to Footprints and watching us also on BevCam. Please subscribe to BevCam if you do like our content. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we are on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts and every place else you really get your podcast from. If this episode really did move you, and I hope it did, please share it with somebody who may need it. And until next time, keep walking your path, keep leaving those footprints. And as always, I leave you with this question: who left a footprint on you? Thanks, Mark, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thanks, Anthony.